Hello everyone, welcome to the Canary's Nest, my knitting, sewing and everything crafty podcast. My name is Ricardo, Canary Lotus on Instagram, Ravelry, Facebook and YouTube. This is actually the first time I'm trying to film something in English. I do have another podcast in French, which I started 7 months ago. Which is actually why I'm here right now. It is because after filming that podcast, I was kind of wanting to add some subtitles into it. The only issue that I was having is that my podcast tends to be very long, 1 hour, 10 minutes, something like that. And I am kind of messy when I'm speaking because I tend to start something and never finish the sentences, which translation speaking is very difficult to deal with, especially when you need to synchronize whatever you are saying with the subtitles. So instead of putting the subtitles, I thought that actually speaking in the target language was much more easier. And the discussions I had with some other podcasters, everyone was kind of telling the same thing. So as some other people did, I'm thinking mostly about Selma, who has another podcast which I do recommend you to go see it. I will add some links on the information tab. And Hortense Pia or Parmeni. I thought that it was better to start doing my podcast in some other languages, and I'm talking about some other languages in plural because I also want to start filming this podcast in Spanish. For I'm a Mexican guy living in France, and I do speak Spanish as my native language. So before starting, I just want to present myself. I started knitting 2 years ago. I wanted to do a gift to someone, and I started knitting just because it was the best way for me to find something meaningful, because I did it myself. Only thing is that after doing the knitting, I couldn't stop myself to continue knitting. Knitting led me to start cross-stitching, and cross-stitching led me to start sewing because I just bought my first sewing machine. And at some point I'm pretty sure that I will find some other crafty stuff to do because I'm a crafty guy. And I'm proud to say that I am a crafty guy who podcasts himself. There are not too many guys who do this kind of videos. In YouTube. There are some of them, and the most of them actually are English-speaking podcasters. I'm thinking specifically about Jonathan Scott from Sweet Tea No Shade, which is a podcast I do love. About Nathan from The Sockmatician, whose podcast is just magnificent. It's maybe one of the best ones I actually see. I'm thinking also about Pau Knits, who's a guy, it's a Spanish guy living in Barcelona. He has a bar and he started podcasting, I think, some months ago, mostly about the same time as I did. And also about John Glenn, who has an excellent knitting podcast. In France, there are some people who started doing the same stuff. I was the first one who started doing the French podcasting, and after that there are 3 other people who follow it, the wave. One of them being Tricosteron. The third one was T-Panda Gamer, and the last one is La Patte d'Eliott. Hopefully by creating some other versions of my podcast in other languages, many more people will start doing this kind of stuff, because knitting is for everyone, not only gals. So just to end this presentation, I will say what's the particularity of my podcasting. As all the podcasters, I do speak about my finished objects, my whips, my incoming projects, and what has become, what's new in my stash. However, I do have another section that I added to my podcast, and this is because I am an insomniac. So I tend to sleep only about 3 to 4 hours a night, which means I do have many time to spend, and this time I spend it knitting and watching some flicks. So by the end of the podcast, I always add a section, an additional section, which I call Netflix, in which I talk about films that I recommend and some other stuff that may come by. For this episode, however, I will not be doing this, not really because I don't have the content, I do have it. The only thing is that since for me this is a new beginning, I wanted to kind of replicate the kind of stuff that I did for my first episode, in which I did not have this section. Lastly, and before starting with the finished objects, I like to say that most of the knitting I do is for other people. I am not a selfish knitter. So many, if not most of the projects that I made this year are not with me anymore. So basically the projects I will be showing you are the only ones that I knitted for myself, which are kinda recent because I only started knitting for myself like 5 months ago, no more than that. I am a kind of a fast knitter. I knit about one shawl every week and a half, which is too much, but knowing that I don't sleep too much, it is kind of it's causality relationship. And the other thing that you'll need to know is that even if I am filming this in 3 languages, the 3 episodes of my podcast will not be the same. I don't want to film the same content 3 times. I think that at one point this will tend to be boring. And since I don't want to be bored about the podcasting, I don't want to do this kind of stuff. So whatever is in the English podcast will be presented at some point into the French or the Spanish one, but it doesn't mean that it will be in the same order or in the same days. So if you really want to follow whatever I'm doing, I do recommend I do recommend you to try to see whatever I'm doing in the other languages. So that you have the whole chronology. Anyway, we will start with the finished objects. This year is the first year I started knitting for myself, and actually to do so because I wanted to knit for myself, but as a guy it is very difficult to find patterns, cool patterns for a guy. I mean, I kind of hate everything which has cables. Cables are not for me, especially inserters. I think it is too bulky. I don't like that. So I don't like too much color working. So that means that finding sweater patterns is very difficult. Shawls, it is kind of the same. I love doing lace, but as a guy, wearing lace is kind of difficult, especially if in my field of work, I work in IT, it's kind of difficult to do that kind of stuff. So I wanted to find some cool patterns to knit for myself, and to do so I started a knit along, in which the whole idea was for the people who were participating in the knit along to knit something for someone else, but this someone else must be a male. This knit along was called A Gift for a Man, and it started on July, and it will be ending this December, by the end of the year. Unfortunately, the inscriptions are not open anymore, but I will be doing some other stuff like that in the near future. And this is actually something that helped me a lot, because with this I found the first shawl that I knit for myself, and this shawl made me discover one, if not my favorite designer of knitting patterns. So my first project, the first project I wanted to show you is the Salmon Shawl by Stephen West, which is an asymmetric shawl that actually is supposed to be finishing here. I did not completely follow the pattern. It is a shawl with 5 skeins. The whole idea is to do some fading, putting 2 fingering weight yarns together, and to combine it, do the different combination for each section. So in this, this is something that is kind of a constant thing in my work, in my knitting work, is that I tend to use always hand-dyed yarns. For this shawl, for example, this is I started over with knitting yarn from By Night Creations, which is Belgium hand dyer, natural hand dyer. She hand dyed this colorway, which is the yellow one, with onions, and then I mixed this up with some Malabrigo. I think it was a sock, yeah, Malabrigo sock. And then once the first section is finished, for the second section, which is well, the first section is most stitched, the second one is stockinette with some holes. We are talking about Stephen West, so of course there will be holes. I mixed this with some Monship Shop, which is another independent hand dyer. She's from France, and I love her work. And then I put some violet with Uncommon Threads one, and some blue with a hand dyer, which actually is one of my favorite ones, which is Heike Med. She's a German hand dyer, but she lives in France, in Grenoble. So anyway, the whole idea of this shawl was to combine the threads to obtain different colors, and the shawl was supposed to finish here. But the thing with having 5 different skeins is that there are too many combinations, and I wanted to see all of them. So instead of stopping here, I continued until I got all the combinations together. And this actually was pretty helpful because of thanks to it, I did use almost all of my yarn. The only thing is that by extension the shawl is ginormous. I am a pretty big guy. I'm 6'1" tall, and this shawl is actually 3.5 meters, which is huge. But I love it. I love it, especially right now, because in France we are the temperature is starting to drop by, and it is one of the warmest shawls I have, and I use it whenever it's too cold, whenever I'm pretty freezing. This is the shawl I go for. This shawl is pretty important to me because this is the first selfish knitting that I did for myself. Of course, it will be for myself because this is selfish, but still, this is the first shawl I knitted for myself, and this is actually the shawl that made me discover the work of Stephen West. Stephen West, who's very important for the rest of my year as a knitter, because as you'll see, I have most of whatever I did to myself is always West knitting, so I'm a Westie. The second shawl I did for myself was a test knit for another podcaster in France. Her name is Magdalena, and she has a podcast called Triple L de Mag, and she created this magnificent pattern which is called Ithaca. This is a 1 skein shawl, so it is not too big. Actually, point to point, it's only about the same length as my arms, which is not too long. So this is my summer shawl. And as I told you, this is a 1 skein shawl, so it's perfect for using a solitary skein. For this, I used one of my other favorites hand dyers. She's from Greece, and her name is Liz. Her brand is called Trellis, and her slogan is actually one of my preferred hashtags, which is "Color is Power." As you'll see in my following projects, I am crazy for colors, and this is actually why I love Stephen West's work, because those are the perfect projects to mix up all the colors that you have in your stash, and this was perfect for it. So this is not color working, this is only slipped stitches, and it is a pretty easy shawl to do. I do recommend for any beginner, and it can be beautiful if you choose to have something very contrasting. For instance, I went for a white everything color in this shawl, but if you want to do it in a solid colorway, I do recommend for you to have a very contrasted color. If not, the pattern here will be lost, which will be a pity. My third, sorry, Ethel is another West knit shawl, and this is the Sedimentary shawl. So this shawl is actually one if not my favorite shawl. I wear it like at least once a week. And this shawl has a pretty meaningful. It's pretty meaningful for me because in my work most of the time I need to do some traveling, and one of my travels was to Japan this year. I bought some Japanese yarn there, which is this one. It is a brand who's called Moko Emiko, which I didn't knew. And I wanted to do something with that yarn, and this was the perfect the perfect project for it, because I managed to find this magnificent blue from my Monship shop, the hand dyer that I told you about some minutes ago. This is actually I think maybe my preferred yarn for the year, because it's plain gorgeous. I mean, I don't know if hopefully you'll be able to see it on the screen, but the way the shading, all the shades, all the tones, all the blues that are here, you have from navy to light blue, there are some speckles in black, yellow, brown, green. I mean, it's a masterpiece. And the way this pattern works is so funny. So there is the knitting is so rhythmic because of all the short rows and the yarn overs. Is that this is actually a pretty fun project to do. And I liked this project so much that even if I did, it was kind of troublesome for me. I spent much more time than for any other project I have done this year, just because I wanted for it to be perfect. I mean, my issue with this shawl was that I was knitting in the plain, which you'll say is kind of a nice way to spend 11 hours in the plain. The only issue is that when you take a night fly, there is no lights in the plane, and if you want to turn them on, people are not very happy about it, which means that I had to knit everything, every single part of the lacing part, mostly on the dark. But the issue with this was that I made so much mistakes that once I landed, I saw that it was a mess. So I had to undo all the lace, stitch by stitch. Yeah, I'm kind of a crazy guy, but I am actually pretty satisfied with the final result. There is not a single error in the shawl, and I love it. I really love it. And once again, this is a monster. So this is 1, 2. It's about 3 meters, 3 meters 20, something like that. As for all the projects, I will be adding description here with all the yarns I use and how much of them I use. For if you like to recreate it, you can. At least you have all the information. If not, you can go to my Ravelry. Every single project has all the information, especially if I did some modifications. My next and last show for this year is another Westnit. Yes, I'm kind of monomaniac with this. This is the Color Craving show, which I did in a pretty discreet and not eye-catchy blend of colors. This show is one of my favorites too, because it has a meaning behind it. If you know and if you have been in Europe, you'll know that European people tend to wear pretty, let's not say sad, but they are not too keen of colors. Most of the people are always in black, blue, white, gray. That's kind of what they use. So if you want to use something more colorful, such as red or yellow, you'll be kind of an exception. I love colors, so I wanted to do something which was eye-catchy, and I actually called this project the Eye Catcher, the Retina Destroyer. I love the show. The only issue that I had with this is that the way it is constructed, I am yet to be able to block it, because I don't have the tools to actually block this kind of stuff. I bought the blocking kit from Knitpro some days ago. It just arrived by mail. Hopefully I will be able to block this weekend, but already it is already huge. I mean, just this part, point to point, it is like 1 meter, 1 meter 40, maybe 2 meters. I don't know. And the length, I mean, I don't even know how long it is, but it is at least 3 meters. Anyway, for this show, instead of doing what Stephen West proposed, which was using 3 skeins, I used 7 of them. So it is a 7-way show, starting with this magnificent yellow, flashy, almost fluorescent yarn from Undercover Otter, which I mixed with yarn from an independent hand dyer from France, whose brand name is Madeleine et Philibert. And then I also used some other French hand dyers' work, this fuchsia from Marie, who I know personally, whose brand name is L'Hélène de Bimounette, and this blue from my favorite, and actually I'm kind of I think I bought like 1 or 2 skeins per month of this specific hand dyer. Her name is Lisa, and her brand name is The Squirrel Yarns. I love what she does, and so much that actually I have all the samples for all the colorways she has, which means that I have it's almost 100 different colorways. So in the next episode I will be showing them to you. And the last 2 yarns that I used are from Hedgehog Fibers. This one is a Skinny Dip. I didn't say the color for this one. This is color Aube, dawn in English. And this, the last one from hedgehog fibers is this magnificent orange, which is called poker. So this project is very original. There are not too many shawls which share this kind of construction, and it was so fun because of all the colors that I mixed that I actually wanted to reuse all the yarns that I had here, because instead of using 3 skeins I ended up using 7 of them. That means that I have many leftovers, but using them is kind of difficult if you don't have a project who requires this kind of colors. And just after I finished this project, Stephen West published the Marlet Mania hat, in which I saw a possibility to use all the colors that I had. My only issue is that since I started using the colors, I started with the cable version of it. I know I just told you that I hated ribs, but for hats it's okay. For sweater it's not, but for hats it's okay for me. I started with the poker for the cable part of it, and then I started with the rivet version of it, using the yarns from my shawl. But once I started, I told myself, wait, you do have way too much leftovers for this year, so why not use them all? So I ended up using them all. So in this hat I ended up using 64 different yarns, which is kind of crazy. So crazy that you are supposed to leave all the threads coming from this part of the project inside it, but there were so many of them that I couldn't do that kind of stuff. So I needed to sew out all the threads that were free for it to be wearable. In all cases, I love this project. I think that the color that I ended up with all that mixed yarn is just gorgeous, and I love it. And this is actually a first, because on my podcast I never wear what I have knitted. So this is the first time I have wear something I knitted in my podcast. That's that shows you how much I love this hat. It is a perfect hat. I do recommend it to you. It's a very easy pattern, pretty original, and if you like colors such as I do, this is the perfect way to use them all. So that's it for the finished objects. Now I propose you to show all my work in progress, which right now we're talking about 4-5 projects, I think. Oh, 4 projects. The first one, let's start with the littlest one. It's just a pair of mittens. This is the pattern Alphaba, which is a free pattern. I don't remember the designer at all. I will add the notes in the screen. It is pretty easy to do. My only issue with this pattern is that it uses 2.5 millimeters needles, but my hands are too big for them. This is why I don't need socks. It is because my hands I'm too big to have this kind of needles, and it is pretty difficult to me to handle them. But since those are for my wife, I will be doing them by the end of the year. Those should be finished. I have already worked one. The other one is half the way through, so it will take a matter of hours. The next project that I want to show you is this one, which is actually in a project bag from one of my other favorite designers, Julie Knits in Paris. I will show you something from her in some minutes. But I love this wax project bag. This is something that has been knitted by many of the French knitters. It is the Boxy from Joji Locatelli. This is actually my second one. This is a gift for someone, one of my friends. Actually, I wasn't supposed to be knitting this, but at one point, once I shared the picture of the boxy I knitted for someone in my work, one of my colleagues, my friend told me, "I love that sweater. Can I have one?" And I think she was joking, and for some reason I just told her, "Sure, why not? What color do you want?" And she actually told me what color she wanted. So I'm re-knitting this monster of a sweater. I'm half the way through, so hopefully by the end of the year it will be finished. This is my no-brainer project, which I tend to knit during what we call here the tricoté. Tricoté is tricot meaning knitting, and thé for tea. So those are some gatherings in which many knitters we reunite ourselves into a coffee shop or a restaurant, and we just spend the evening knitting. So since this is perfect for speaking and joking around without doing any mistakes, this is a very good project for this kind of activity. So this is my no-brain project. Or for the this is especially nice to go to the movies because you can knit in the dark without any risk of doing stupid things. The third project I'm knitting is another gift, which is a gift for one of the people who I started knitting for. I wanted to give her a cardigan, and I was a beginner when I started knitting this, and I just from whatever without putting any attention of the weight of the yarn or how much yarn was required to do this kind of stuff, and for some reason I just saw a pattern from this book, Rowan Loves, from Rowan Knits, with 9 designs by Martin Story, and there was one pattern that I actually found to be very, very beautiful, which is a cardigan, more like a vest, called Heaven. If I manage to find it, sorry. I am not really well prepared for this, so I am searching for it. Yeah, it is. So this is the thing. The only thing here is that, well, just by the picture it is pretty difficult to see what kind of project we're talking about. This is actually seed stitch for a huge amount of yarn with some lacing, and after seeing and I ended up knowing that just for the back of it, I ended up using like 5 skeins or something like that. It is huge. I mean, it's bigger than a boxy, and this is only the back of it. It's like knitting a plate and putting it together to make a vest. I love knitting this because it's so soft, and this is once again yarn from Squirrel Yarns, because I love that brand. But it takes so much time that I'm actually kind of worried that I will not be able to finish it on time. The birthday of the person I'm knitting this for is on February, but even if I have already finished the back, one of the front parts, I think is the right one, not the left one. I need to finish the right one and the sleeves, and then I have to sew it, and then I have to pick up the stitches for coal and everything else, so it will take some time. So since I do need to do the Christmas gifts, this might be an issue. So hopefully I will be able to do it, but if not, I will have to find something else to give to that person before I end this project, because this is a monster. My last project, my last whip right now, and it is my project from Julie Knits in Paris. It's a shawl, a very original shawl, whose name is Caffeine. Julie is kind of the West Knits from France. Her style is kind of similar to what the West Knits in the craziness of it. And this shawl is so crazy that it starts with this. Just by seeing it, I don't think that you will be able to know what the hell is this thing. But the actual thing is like you have this big circle in which you have this big hole. And then you have a triangle attached to it. And the whole idea is for the triangle to pass over the hole. So you have this thing here and round it over and then passing through. So it is a pretty original shawl. I have never seen something like this before, and this is actually why I started doing this, because I find the form so original that I wanted to try it out. And the way she works is so funny, so funky, that it actually, I think the way I knit, it is the work, the project that I need to knit. Especially after knitting this. This is kind of the same style. So right now I started this the last Monday. Today we are on Friday. So it is going pretty well. It requires it's a 3-color way, and you can find her in Ravelry. She has a store in which she has like I think 5 or 6 patterns, and she's pretty active. She just published two additional patterns in the last couple of days. One of which I will be hopefully I will be knitting in the near future. So that's for my whips. What's to come, I will not show everything that will be coming, because it will take too much time, and since I'm the kind of guy who starts with I mean, my queue in Ravelry has not too much projects, actually has only 7 or 6. Those are the ones that I pretty sure I will be knitting. The only issue is that if you see it today, it is highly possible that next week it will completely different. So instead of showing you what I think I will be knitting, I will show you what I know I will be knitting. And though this is one cropped sweater that is an actual request from my wife. She asked me to knit this from the Row One Knits. This is actually pretty important because this year I couldn't give her anniversary gift from our marriage because we were too busy to actually celebrate it. And her anniversary is, her birthday is pretty soon, and we are near Christmas. So I just bought the yarn from Squirrel Yarns once again. I knitted my how to say this in English? I don't know how to say this in English, sorry. Well, I just measured the tension in this making some tests. I don't know how to say it in English. I will need to find this away for the next episode. And I will be starting this, I think, tomorrow. So that is this is my next big project, and then I will have to find something to gift my stepmother and my stepfather. I am not going back to Mexico for the holidays. I actually don't go back to Mexico very often, but hopefully I will be able to send something out, if not for Christmas, maybe for their birthdays, which are actually far away, which means that I will have the time to knit something for them. So that's for the projects. I just wanted to share my last addition to the stash, even if it's not yarn. Actually, it is a pattern book which I bought from, and if you can see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. I just bought this, and I will be doing this. I love this sweater. It is amazing, and since I was quick enough to actually buy this in the first 2 minutes of the selling, yes, I am a compulsory buyer. When I talking about yarn or patterns, whenever I see something that I like, I buy it right away. And I actually bought something by the pattern book with an autograph from Wes Knits. So this is a precious book. And actually, after seeing what is inside this, I do think that I will be doing many projects. This one, for example, if I find something which the Enchanted Mesa is something that I might be doing. I mean, I don't know how many of them I will be doing, but I'm pretty sure I will be doing some of them, at least 2 or 3. The Kangaroo Lover, it's another one that I might be doing, because I think it is pretty funny to do. So basically, I'm in love with Stephen West's work, and I will be doing at least 1 or 3 more patterns from him, at least from now to spring, because since I am a very fast knitter, I will end up doing those pretty quickly. The only thing I need to do is find the yarns to do the work. So that's for it. That's it. I hope you liked this podcast. I will be doing another one in a couple of weeks, hopefully before Christmas, if not after that. I will be filming the Spanish version of this in some minutes, maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow, I don't know. It will all depend on the battery of my telephone, because I filmed this using my cellular phone. So please subscribe to this channel if you can, and put a like if you liked this episode, and see you again on the next time. See ya, bye.